I'll just make this note now. I am a serious believer in data. I like to have more of it rather than less. So I don't have as much as I want right now, but I will continue to gather it, and we will always make it available.
That is Lutheran Social Services CEO Jessica Thomason in early November of this year discussing the refugee resettlement program and stating that she wants more data on the program and she's going to make it available to you and I. And I got to say this, let's hope so, because breaking news today, the National Counterterrorism Center told the head of the Homeland Security Committee that Islamic extremists have explored using the refugee resettlement program to enter the United States. Good evening and welcome to 630 Point of View. I'm Chris Berg. As always, thanks so much for joining us. Well, today, Jessica Thomason met with the Cass County Board of Social Services to talk more about the refugee resettlement program right here in our community, and also how it's impacting our community. So to give us some insight into the meeting that took place today as Cass County Commissioner Chad Peterson. Chad, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
No problem.
Let's start here. You just heard Jessica say, look, I'm all about data. I want to be more open. I want to be more transparent. Did that happen today in this meeting?
I think so. I think she did her best to answer the questions we had before her. The interesting part about what we've learned over the past little while is that nobody really knows the full picture. And that's if I had a takeaway today, it really surprised me that that was the fact, that it wasn't as cut and dry as I maybe thought it might have been. So I was sort of taken aback.
So what's missing, though? I mean, this isn't a new program, so why isn't there more data readily available? And what's the missing piece or unit?
Well, I can only speak for Cass County. I'd be curious to find out what the friends at school districts in other cities, housing authorities would have. But from our end, I think it's been a lack of question asking. I think we're trying to do our due diligence and trying to figure out what's going on. What we are missing as a whole is the longevity of the program. I think the folks at LSS would tell you, and they told us today, their gross revenues based on the folks we're bringing in, let's say this year, it's about 506 people, I think, going from memory, and they're going to generate $3.9 million from those 506 folks. That's $8,000 per person. The concern is what happens beyond their monitoring date. And what they do is they track people as best they can, and again, going from memory here, is 90 days out. So beyond 90 days, they really don't keep track of what folks are up to and if they're still working, if they're asking for additional help. I know she does have people in the office that will help if they come back, but to what degree do they help, I don't know. And to what depth do they help after the fact, I don't know. I'd like to believe they do their best, but chances are you can only do so much with the limited job experience, work history these folks have. Most probably don't speak English or don't speak it that well, so their options are fairly limited.
So there's some data, because I mean, you just talked about 3.9 million, 500 people.
We just learned that today, yes.
Oh, that's the first time you've heard that.
We've not heard that number, and again, I'll put the onus on myself for not asking.
Yeah, because I don't get the sense, I mean, and Jessica, I think, is doing as good a job as she can. She's fairly new at this position. I mean, I don't get a sense that she's trying to snow anybody or anything of that nature. Okay, good.
I would agree.
The biggest question I think a lot of people are asking is obviously there's the safety aspect that we just talked about. Today was told to our Homeland Security, the chairman of that committee, hey, they have tried to penetrate the refugee resettlement program. That aside, many other people are talking about simple costs. A lot of governors are saying, look, we just cannot continue to afford to do this. When you look at it from a county or local level, what is the cost to say to the Cass County, if you will?
And that's what we're trying to figure out in Cass, because again, we are just one slice of the pie. And the things we're looking at is what does it cost in terms of social services? What does it cost in terms of law enforcement? And along with law enforcement, we have the judiciary and our legal teams too, if something doesn't go quite as well as we might hope. So we really don't know off the top of our heads, but again, that's what we're trying to figure out, what that dollar figure really is.
Is there any cost to the county and or local or state?
Yeah, absolutely there is. And the easiest thing to pick on is the average person, excuse me, according to the data we were given, 95% of the working adults have jobs. The average salary is $9.50 an hour. 85% of those folks that are employed have health care insurance. So at $9.50 an hour, let's say you have a mom and a dad and a couple babies at home, chances are they're getting some sort of assistance, whether it's food, housing, heating. We at the county administer those things. So our friends across the street from the courthouse in the annex are the folks that do that work. Well, that's our direct cost.
I was going to say, so there's not necessarily a quote-unquote direct cost that's coming out of the budget, but there's the cost of obviously man hours that are being used to because I want to play something for you. We had Governor Jack Dalrymple on towards the end of November, and we've talked about TANF and some different social services programs that are out there. And I asked him specifically several times, so what you're telling me is there's absolutely no cost to the state and or local political subdivisions, if you will. Here's what he had to say. So what I'm hearing you say, just for clarity, because this is the big question I'm getting, Governor, is that there are 0 state tax dollars or 0 local dollars that are going to subsidize, help, however, whatever word you want to use, refugees that are resettling in North Dakota.
The only thing that there would be is if, we're required to do a cost share on some Medicaid services.
Is that accurate?
I think that's fair, and I think that's what he's alluding to. And he's from Castleton. He was a House rep, so he knows a lot more about this probably than I do. But I think that's what he's implying in terms of, yes, the local costs that are there, but there's no check written by the state, my understanding, directly to subsidize anything more than what the federal government has passed through.
One other quick question for you. A lot of people in this community feel like, hey, you know what, crime is up. Some people obviously are saying, hey, this is because of more refugees coming in. Again, we can't prove that. We don't have the data. What I'm hearing from local law enforcement agencies is, Chris, we couldn't monitor that even if we wanted to because we don't have the software capabilities. In your opinion, now as a commissioner, is it time to upgrade that software and to be able to monitor crime rates based on that?
Honestly, I don't know that off the top of my head. I wouldn't know what it costs, A, and then B, my gut's telling me I would need more input from our friends in the Sheriff's Department as well, local law enforcement, because I don't know that our jail is populated with folks that are from out of the country. As you and I talked prior, the immigrants we're having struggles with at our local law enforcement level in terms of Cass County are immigrants that are coming from Detroit and Chicago. So that's where our focus would be in terms of what's filling our jails. They're more active and more violent, and that's what we're dealing with.
I got 60 seconds left. The most important thing people should know from this meeting today is what?
I think that we don't know. And
but that's stunning to me. This is not new.
It is disheartening, I would say, would be my word. But we are working on it. We're working on finding an answer to find out what it is. And what is our end goal? Maybe that's a better thing to end with. My end goal as a Cass County Commissioner is to figure out what it's costing the county. Hopefully the Fargo School District, West Fargo, our neighbors in other cities will figure out what it costs them. With that, we take that to Bismarck, because our friends in Bismarck don't know either. We can then ask the federal government for additional help. And be that as it may, I would rather have a number in my hand to advocate with than me shrugging my shoulders and saying I have no idea.
Very quickly, last question. In your opinion, as you know, the state gave up sort of running the refugee resettlement program, turned it over to LSS. Should the state take it back over? Quickly, yes or no?
I would say no.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chad Peterson. Appreciate your time. Please, as you get to know more information, let us know. Okay?
I will love to do that.
Thank you very much. All right, as hopefully many of you saw last night, 60 Minutes did a special on using college students as confidential informants. Part of the story included the story about Andrew Sadek. You can see Tammy Sadek here. She joins us to give her thoughts on the story and the latest right after this. And I always want to know your thoughts on what Mr. Peterson had to say here about the Refugee Resettlement Program. LSS, text us, email us. Here's the phone number you can text us at. We will be right back.